So in question 5, we're talking about the case of the US current account deficit again. Now recall from question 3, when we discussed the US current account deficit, we have seen that over the past few decades, they have run a very persistent current account deficit, right? So they have been having more imports than exports, sorry. So they have more imports than exports over the last 30 years or so. And at the same time, they have had a positive capital account, right? Meaning that they have had more foreign investors investing in the US relative to US investors investing outside, yeah? So this question says that you need to comment on the following statement. Since the United States import more than export, it needs to import capital from foreign countries to finance its current account deficit, right? So essentially this question is looking at a solution for the current account deficit, right? And it proposes that the US needs to import more capital from overseas to be able to sustain the account deficit, yeah? So to really understand how to solve the problem of the account deficit, we need to understand why the problem happens in the first place, right? So this sentence implicitly assumes that the problems of the account deficit is caused by something else, and therefore it proposes that one way to solve it to use the capital account, right? So let's see whether it's right or not. So as we mentioned before when we talk about question 3 with the US account deficit, now in the past few decades there has been a strong demand of USD, right? Either from central banks that need to hold foreign currencies. So we talk about the gold exchange standard when central banks hold US currencies as an additional source of reserves, right? To grow the money supply. So as central banks acquire the USD to hold as reserve, it creates demand for USD, right? So besides the central banks, there has been strong confidence in the US economy by foreign investors, and therefore foreign investors have been buying a lot of US financial assets, okay? So these are the factors that creates a strong demand for USD. And as demand is strong, it leads to a high value of USD, right? So it looks like, therefore, that the problem with account deficit is caused by a strong value of the USD, which in turn is caused by a strong demand from investors. Okay. So with a strong currency, with a strong USD, it makes it harder for US companies, US producers to be competitive in the international environment, right? And as a result, it's harder for US companies to export relative to their foreign competitors. On the other hand, their foreign competitors find it easier to export into the US, which explains why the US has more import relative to exports, okay? So overall, it means that importing capital is not likely to be a solution for the current account deficit problem in the US, because the further you have capital inflow into the US, the higher the USD, the higher the value of the USD, which only makes the trade deficit problem even worse. Okay. So one thing that you need to think about in having a comprehensive answer for question 5 is to take one step further and think about what else you can do to solve the problem, right? So if you're the central banker in the US, how would you think about this problem? Yeah. So one way to sort of soften the value of the USD is for the government to step in and decide that it's time for them to supply the USD into the international market to try to soften the demand, right? To try to soften the price, okay? Another way could be, for example, to make US industries more competitive, and therefore reduce the price of goods and services of US products. Okay, so these are the things that you need to discuss in your answer for question.